So we know that objects are values and functions grouped together, data with built-in functionality. So let's learn how to write our own. And a bit of a fair warning, we're not going to go over every single thing you can do with objects in this unit. We're keeping it pretty basic for now, but you can always explore the deeper functionality of objects on your own. Let's start. To create a new type of object, you need to make a new class. A class is like the template for your object or the definition. It says what an object should hold and what an object can do, but it doesn't hold all of the specific object data itself. To create a class, type the keyword class and then the name you want to call it. The convention for naming classes is different than variables and functions. Start with a capital letter, and instead of underscores, capitalize the first letter of the next word, like this. I'll call this class dog. Then follow the name with a colon, and you guessed it, you can start a block on the following lines. Now you can write your properties and methods. To define a method inside of a class, it's almost like writing a regular function. However, inside of the parentheses, where you put your parameters, you'll always need to put a first parameter called self, just like this. After that, you can write code inside like normal. I'll place a print for demonstration. After the class is defined, you can make an object by calling the class like a function. Except, we call this instantiating instead of calling, because it makes a new instance of the class. The words instance and objects are both interchangeable. Every time you instantiate a class, it creates a unique object. However, if you don't store the object, it doesn't really do anything. Sort of like just writing the number 7. You'll probably want to store the object in a variable to work with it. Now we can call that method on the object. If I say dog1.saySomething and then run this program, you can see that the code inside of the method ran. Cool. Let's go back to the class. There's one special method that you should have in pretty much all of your classes. It's called the init method, short for initialize. You write it like this: 2 underscores before and after the word init, and then again with the self parameter. The init function is special because it runs when you first instantiate an object. Let's try it with a new print statement. Simply making a dog object ran the print. We didn't call the init function, it ran when we created the object. If I make a second dog object, we get 2 prints. Okay, so how do you normally use the init function? And what's up with this self parameter? They kind of go together. Self is like a placeholder for the object itself. In the block, if I say self.name equals codedog, I'm saying take the object, give it a property called name, and set that to a string codedog. Now I can take an instance and retrieve the property name. Let's print dog1.name. This is how we add properties to objects. Right now, every single dog object will have the same name codedog, but we want to be able to set the name for each dog we make. This is where init comes in handy. If you add extra parameters after the self, you can set data when you go to create an object. Let's add the parameter name, and then set self.name equal to the given name. Now, when we instantiate a new dog, we give it a name in the parentheses. Let's name one dog Buddy and one dog Scooby, and print those properties to see that they're different. Cool! Now we have 2 objects, each with one property, but the 2 values they hold are different. Let's repeat this pattern to also hold an age and color property, and I'll also add a tricks property and set that to an empty list. I'll use that in a minute. Now when we create dog objects, we have to specify the name, age, and color. So we've achieved the first goal of objects, to group values together. Now let's write some methods that deal with behavior related to those values. I'm going to change this saySomething method to print something different. In fact, if you look at it, it doesn't do anything with the self parameter, so it doesn't touch the dog object at all. That means this function is unrelated to the dog class, and if you have a method in a class that is unrelated to the object, it's best to move it outside of the class or remove it. Now it's a method called introduce that prints the dog's information and all of the tricks it knows. Notice how whenever I want to access the object's properties, I have to use the self parameter .theProperty. Let's introduce these two dogs. Everything's working as expected. Lastly, let's make one more function so our dogs can learn tricks. I do this by appending a trick passed through the method into the tricks property inside of the dog object. Now each dog can learn tricks independent of each other. Nice. Let's teach Buddy how to speak and sit, and Scooby how to shake and roll over. Then let's look at their introductions. Awesome! So now you know how to create classes, objects from classes, methods, properties, the init method, and the self parameter. It's a lot to learn, so take your time exploring how objects work. In the next video, we're going to tie in a bit of object-oriented programming and learn how we can make objects interact. Stay tuned. codedog out.